And as Madam told, actually this is not something new, but in view of the new educational trends, and particularly when we are talking of the globalization, then these issues are raised in the society. So first, I think all of you know, but let me just simplify what exactly we mean by inclusive classroom. In simple words, I can say inclusive classroom is one where students and staff alike recognize, appreciate, promote the diversity and try to enrich the overall learning experience. It has an openness and freedom which encourages all learners, irrespective of the gender, ethnicity, religious affiliation, socio-economic status, and personal beliefs, to develop skills to understand and face the challenges of life. Now, when we talk of diversities, mainly we may categorize them into two, you can say, kinds. One, we may say their mental abilities, capabilities, and including those who have special needs. And the other, I think we can say, of their background. Now, for a teacher, it's a big challenge. Now, the challenging task for the teacher, how to make a balance in a class which have not only diversified needs, capabilities, aptitude, and interests, but also various beliefs and socio-economic backgrounds. The challenge is, despite these odds, the teacher has to create a productive and inclusive learning environment. And this is a challenge for both the schools and the educators. Now, one thing I think which we all should note, this is a universal problem. It's not only pertaining to India. The nature and the degree may differ, but problem is identical. As we see today, I think in all the countries, people move from one country to another, and there are migrants from different ethnicities and customs and beliefs. What can a teacher do to cope with this challenge, diversity? Now, all classrooms are diverse in terms of the abilities of children and the ways they learn. We need to consider how a child learns best and how we as teachers can build positive relationships with each child so that the children can actively learn from us, and more importantly, how they learn in a group together. If the teacher does not take into consideration these disparities, sometimes we find, I think we feel frustrated. Now, the bigger question is it possible? In fact, we have no option but to make it possible. Now, the question, there are 30 to 40 children in a class. So, is it possible for the teacher in the same class, when he has got, say, 30 to 40 minutes, can he cater to the different needs of these 30, 40 students? I think it is virtually not possible. Can the teachers prepare different 30, 40 lesson plans? I think no. Then how the teacher can handle this issue? Now, I think the teacher can create an atmosphere of inclusive learning. She can or he can create atmosphere of trust and faith where all diversities are accommodated, where exchange and interaction takes place with no fear or favor, where classes are full of fun and excitement, in fact joyful places, where diversity is not a hindrance but a beauty, as we see outside in nature, where despite varieties of flora and fauna, there is a wonderful principle of coexistence and cohabitation. Now, primary objective and effort of a teacher is to foster confidence in their abilities and lifting up their self-esteem. The teacher as a facilitator welcomes, nurtures and educates all children regardless of their gender, physical, intellectual, social, emotional, linguistic or other characteristics. All of us have, I think, this self-esteem, sometimes we say ego, and so do the students. It is the duty of a teacher to respect the dignity of a child. Any kind of remark, particularly related to the ethnicity of a child, faith of a child, can hurt the child severely. The teacher can show by example of fairness in the class. The children carry all these values with them when they grow up as contributing citizens in the society if they are nurtured in such an atmosphere. Now, the way a teacher organizes activities in the class plays an important role in shaping a child's personality. The more the activities of a group participation, the more inclusiveness we shall promote. It will promote cooperation among all members of the group. Inclusiveness in the class, I think sometimes we must, as the member of the community, I think we should also think of the concept of inclusiveness in the community schools. I think this concept can also be discussed, because today we find, I think, all the schools, whether it is possible or not, I think we should also think of bringing this inclusiveness in the schools as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mr. Kandpal. Now, may I invite Shri Prakash Choudhury, Principal, Prestige Public School, Indore.
Well, good evening to all of you, and I'm sure the speakers before me have cleared you what exactly we mean by inclusive learning. As a teacher, many of the times we become very happy when we see the faces of the children in the classroom, and probably even more happier when we see the children, they respond to us very nicely in the classroom. But probably we are forgetting here there are many children who are not so fortunate to come to your classroom. And what I could understand from this term, inclusive learning, is how you can find out what could be the ways or what could be the methods by which all the boys and girls, they come to your classroom, and not only they come to the classroom, once they come to the classroom, I believe 50% of the challenge is over, but the 50% of the challenge becomes now what should be the design of your curriculum you prescribed. So far what's happening with our education, what I could understand in last 25 years of my career as a teacher, that we have a same kind of curriculum, same kind of methodology, same kind of technology, and we have a heterogeneous group of children. So probably the time now demands we have to find out what the child really requires and what kind of method will help the child, and that is what all about the inclusive learning says. Here I have tried to include the term ILFC. Now here what exactly I mean by ILFC. ILFC stands for Inclusive Learning Friendly Classroom. Now, inclusive learning friendly classroom, is that which includes everyone, regardless of anything, whether you talk about the gender, it does not discriminate on the basis of gender, it does not discriminate on the basis of physical appearance, or the social status, or the emotional level, or you talk about IQ, EQ, and SQ and all, or any other characteristics, or even the child is a very gifted child, or the child is a slow learner, or what kind of disability the child is having. But ILFC is that is we call about inclusive learning friendly classroom, is that where this kind of discriminations are not there. I personally, as a teacher, had been to number of schools, and what witnessed is sometimes knowingly or unknowingly we as a teacher discriminate the children. I have seen the schools where they call so-called ability sections, that on the basis of this percentage, a particular group of children would be put in a particular section, or particular children would be put in this section, and probably there the thought is very pious as a teacher, he probably will be helping them by making them the homogeneous group. But we forget that we unknowingly we are discriminating the children, and now it is a very high time, it is the need of the hour, what exactly the inclusive learning is and how it can take place in the classroom, and what teachers should do for the inclusive learning. And dear friends, I suppose first of all, a teacher has to know and understand the true meaning of education. What exactly we mean by education in today's scenario. When I just go through the dictionaries and I find the dictionary meaning, what exactly we mean by education. Education, this word comes from, sorry. Yeah, this has been derived from the Latin word educare. And it stands for E for out and ducare is bring. That means everything is there in the child, within the child. Only the job one has to do as a teacher is to bring out those hidden qualities, that hidden potential, what the child has. And probably in a very right context, Swami Vivekananda told, education is the process of bringing out the perfection which is already within one. The child has it, but only as a teacher what I have to do is, I have to understand what kind of hidden talent the child is having and how can I carve it. That is what. And probably it was Mahatma Gandhi who told education is the development of body, mind and spirit. It's not only mind. For a long time we were talking about, okay, the child gets this much percentage, or child gets this kind of grade, and the child has been rated as one of a good student or so-called intelligent student. But we have ignored that the child, the healthy mind house in a healthy body, and for that you require the physical activities. What Mr. Kandpal rightly was telling about, the number of assignments are there in the school, whether you talk about their games period, their hobby period, their examination schedules, their mess routine and what not. So it's not only the mind which is to be taken care by the teachers in inclusive learning, but it's a body which is very, very important, and then comes the spirit. And spirit, when I say, I do not mean any religious sentence here, the spirit. Spirituality does not mean any religion, but spirituality means if mentally the child is sound, definitely he will perform very well, and that is what Mahatma Gandhi told about the education. Now, even sometimes I was going through the principles given by the Aurobindo. And Aurobindo says that there are basically two principles of education. And one is, the true teaching is nothing can be taught. You cannot teach the children. Now the question arises, when you cannot teach the children, why do we have so-called big schools and the big teachers like all of us? When nothing can be taught to the children. But this first principle can be understood by the second principle, which says that mind has to be consulted for its own growth. So the first job as a teacher is, first you consult the children, you make them prepare for that, whether they are ready to learn. But what we generally commit the mistake in a classroom, as a mathematics teacher, I go in the class and without caring for their mental status, what was in the previous period, I don't care for that, and I just start, okay, now I'll start teaching you quadratic equations. Isn't it? So first of all, I as a teacher has to consult them whether they are ready or not for the studies. Does not mean that all the time you do not teach in the classroom. First, I mean, if we talk to them, we try to know, we build up the rapport. The rapport is very, very important in my opinion, friends. Rapport between the child and a teacher. And that helps you a lot. Once the rapport is developed, I think the subject becomes easier for the teacher as well as the learner. Now let us talk, sometimes it is, the term is misunderstood, that inclusive learning and excellence. So I think excellence lies in the understanding and thinking differently. I'll not be going in the depth as I have been given 10 minutes time, and otherwise we all know about the taxonomy of education, the steps given in the taxonomy and the kind of pyramid is given in the taxonomy. But yes, excellence lies in the understanding, and it moves from one failure to another failure with the enthusiasm. That is what excellence is. If still failure is there and you do not lose your enthusiasm, then find you are moving towards the right direction. Excellence cannot be matched with success. It cannot be achieved by the intellectual development. This is what says about the excellence. When we talk about excellence in the school student scenario or school education scenario, basically it can be divided in three parts. Academic, that I think we all are doing wonderfully well as a teachers, and all the time we say ki these many children have got above 90%, or these many children have got 10 CGPA and what not, or these many children have got selected in IIT, JEE or in medicals. That is what academic, all the schools are doing wonderfully well. Environmental, when I talk about, do we really provide the kind of environment to the children in which they find easier, or the conducive atmosphere, you call in the other words. The environment is very, very important. Environment does not mean that you have the AC classrooms in your school. Environment does mean that it should be a friendly atmosphere. When I say friendly atmosphere, I mean here the teacher should have a kind of friendly behavior with the child, but should never be the friend of the child. Because again, this term is misunderstood, and when you become the friend of the, you can never become a friend of a child. You can be friendly with them, and even the environment, I mean, they become very, very sensitive about their own environment or not. And the very, very important, which in the last few years probably we have ignored, I think as in our Indian education scenario, we have created the number of doctors and engineers, but I really doubt and I have fear in mind whether we have created the good human beings or not. And that is what today's time is. And I think if we talk if we take any education board, particularly as I have been associated for a long time with CBSE, so I understand now what these people have started, you call it life skills, or previously we used to call a value education or moral education. That is nothing but that is trying to create the good human beings. Because above all, if you are creating the doctors and the engineers who do not have the human values or who do not care for the human values, probably I think the purpose of education would not be served in the right sense. So I remember here once Mahatma Gandhi visited to one of the school. I heard from one of the resource person this story somewhere, and he took a round and very profoundly the principal has shown everything. This is our very beautiful chemistry lab, probably we have a library, and which is the best library in the state and what not, art of state and this and that and blah blah blah. When he was sitting with the staff room, and then even he was introduced, well, Mr. Jain is a very good accounts teacher, or Mr. JCD is a very good English teacher, and so on. Then Gandhiji asked to the principal, I make to your English teacher, your accounts teacher, your English teacher and all, but I do not know who is the teacher of these children. So, first of all, being a subject expert is always good. One should excel with the subject, but before that one should try to become a good teacher. And that is what I could understand from that question, one should be the teacher of a child first, and then the teacher of a particular subject. So that is what the human touch we give to it. And as you know, 2 decades before, it was told about learning to learn, that one document was released by Government of India where Dr. Karan Singh was the president of this committee. And the booklet says, learning the treasure within. And learning the treasure within, they were basically talking about learning to learn, learning to do, learning to know, learning to be, and learning to live together. Does really it happens in the classroom? Or still we have shifted from examinations, or we have shifted from 3 hours year-end examination to now summative, or from summative to formative, or so-called CCE. But really this purpose is served or not? Do really they understand how to live together? Do they understand from this? Are they live how to live in the present? And if they do not know the value of now, that is present, probably I think our learning will not be the inclusive learning at any point of time. And that is probably somewhere it was told, ki when I listen, I forget, when I see, I remember, and when I do, I understand. And that is the reason probably if the children are involved, the involvement is a very, very important factor. If the children are involved in every activity, I think they will understand and they'll keep in mind for a longer time. And for a long term, that has to be the long-term goal of the education, instead of having a short-term goal. How do I teach my child so that he performs very well in the examination, and at least this year, because I am his teacher, he pass in the examination. And not has to be. And if it does happen, then exactly what is going to happen and what would be the benefits of this inclusive learning, I think we'll have the number of brainstorming sessions, and to have a brainstorming session, you will require to give the freedom, the controlled freedom. When I say freedom, I mean a controlled freedom in a classroom, that the groups, they discuss and you welcome their ideas. Sometimes it is going to happen, the kind of things they are sharing may not be having any sense. But if you do not give them the opportunities to speak, you do not encourage the children, probably there might be some good ideas and creative ideas which will not come out. That is probably the reason ki, if you see about research, ki where do we stand as Indians, so in research or in plain sciences the number is decreasing, and I feel that is probably the reason ki somewhere we do not allow the children to think. Or we have a kind of a mindset and we ask them to go on that particular path, which is probably wrong. Or any child who goes or who thinks out of the box, we probably as a teacher do not like. Or as a teacher I like if I taught this problem by this method, only that method the child should write. Rather, I believe as a teacher we must welcome if any different kind of method is used by the child. And if it happens, it would be inclusive classroom, inclusive learning friendly classroom, and brainstorming would be one of the benefit out of it. Research would be other benefit. The child may, when they sit in the group, they learn from each other, they learn the caring and sharing, they will know how to read, how to write. And then otherwise what is happening, if you talk particularly about any subject, may say language English, you have the number of sections like reading skills, writing skills, listening skills and whatnot. But does really it helps the children, and whether they have increased these skills or not. So personally I feel that those have been taught in the classrooms and the children are getting the marks out of it. But probably the skills are not developed. So where the problem is again comes ki once anything is attached with the marks or with the grades, it is not going to help us. So can we have the kind of method where the marks or the grades are not the rewards, but the other things are the rewards? Here again one thing has been misunderstood by many of us, that is probably the punishment kind of thing which is helping the teachers all the time. I find what can we do for the inclusive learning is one has to understand the difference between the punishment and a discipline. Okay, I mean, how the punishment is different from the discipline. I was going through some of the literature, and what could I find is that there had been some myths, and the few I'll share with you if the time allows. Generally, we teachers forget that this thing I am teaching, probably if I am a teacher of a 10 years experience, I am teaching this the 10th time, 11th time, but the child is learning it first time. So that is what we generally forget, which is to be kept in a mind. Then generally we believe what was right at our time as a student. That is today also right, while the time has been changed drastically. And it happened to me, and it did me no harm, so the same will happen with my children. That is what the wrong conception is there. Nothing else will work, and so this method will work. That is what we forget. And if it had been true, then I really surprised how we probably were 3-4 brothers, sisters, how our parents grown up us, and how difficult today to grow up one child, which we have 1 or 2. So probably the fact is time is changed, and with the time the teacher has to be. Another myth I found is corporal punishment works best, other methods don't. It could be serving the short-term goal, but on a long term you will find it does not work. Rather, corporal punishment even does not teach the obedience to the child. Then I only do it as the last resort. I had no choice. I think as a teacher, nothing should be the last resort. Rather, as a teacher, one should be the researcher to find out if the child is not learning by this way or the method I teach, can I discover the methods by which the child learns? And I was going through one of the, I think, slogan probably given by Asset Ahmedabad. And they say that the photograph of one child is there, and they say that the child is saying to the teacher, if I do not learn the way you teach, can you teach the way I learn? And really it is a great challenge for all of us as a teacher, can we really find out those methods? So friends, I have got to sleep to wind up as soon as possible. So I'll be telling you the meaning of a discipline. I understand is discipline is the practice of teaching or training a person to obey the rules, the code of behavior in both the short and the long-term goals. And I'm sure as a teacher, if we use the inclusive methods, probably we'll be able to do. There are many things and many speakers to come here. So I'll close down the session here. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Choudhury. Now may I invite Mr. Pradeep Pandey, Principal, Pioneer Convent School, Indore.
Good afternoon, everybody. See, in fact, tomorrow I am having my annual function, and after doing all the arrangements, I came here. I was given time 3:30, but I have become late by 10 minutes, and I could not prepare any of the slides or presentation like this. Though I strongly believe in using technology in education. Because I still remember I have done master trainer course from Intel, and I got first prize in that also. We have got, at that time, it was about 10 to 12 years before, we had different clubs, and we had one meeting, national level meeting in Hyderabad. There in Hyderabad, I have seen one presentation in which
it was shown, the life cycle of mosquito was shown. कि मच्छर आता है, पानी के ऊपर बैठता है, जो हम कभी नहीं देख सकते वो उसमें दिखाया था, वो धीरे धीरे अंडे देता है, अंडे नीचे आते हैं, धीरे धीरे लार्वा और प्यूपा में बदलते हैं, वो धीरे धीरे मच्छर बनता है और पानी की सतह से ऊपर उठ जाता है. This scene still, I remembers this video as it is in my mind. And if we are using technology in education, the same thing is going to happen with the students also. Inclusive learning in classrooms. As Mr. Kandpal said, there is diversity in the students. Inclusive learning, different peoples are having different thoughts about this. I think inclusive learning means if they can get something other than what is written in their books. I remember Albert Einstein said, I'm not interested in reading about the dates of the wars. I'm interested in finding out how many died in that, what was the reason for those wars. क्योंकि वो तो मैं बुक से पढ़ सकता हूँ, बुक में सब कुछ लिखा हुआ है. What extra I'm getting? So for inclusive learning, what I think, we should make class interesting. And to make the class interesting, of course, technology is one of the method. And another is, if you want to make them interesting, then throw some disturbing questions or interesting questions in the class. I will give one example for that. Transformation of heat. If you want to teach it, class mein, I still remember one of the incidents in which teacher went in the class. He said, he asked one question, क्या आप बतला सकते हो ऊंट को लू क्यों नहीं लगती? Suddenly all the students started looking towards that teacher. दूसरा क्वेश्चन, क्या आपने जो बोले सो निहाल पिक्चर देखी है? स्टूडेंट्स बोले यस सर, यस सर. उसमें वो सीन याद है जिसमें सनी देओल अमेरिका में अपनी जेब से प्याज निकालता है और बोलता है, यहाँ पे अमेरिका में आने के पहले मेरी मम्मी ने मेरी जेब में प्याज रख दिया था जिससे मेरे को लू ना लग जाए. अब ये सब देख के जो डफर स्टूडेंट भी था उसका भी ध्यान टीचर की तरफ आकर्षित हो गया. उसने पूछा, प्याज से मालूम है क्या होता है? अगर आप प्याज को बगल में दबा लो तो आपको उसके रेडिएशन से बुखार चढ़ जाता है, और अगर बुखार चढ़ गया मतलब हमारी बॉडी का टेम्परेचर, इफ द टेम्परेचर ऑफ आवर बॉडी इज राइजिंग एंड आउटसाइड टेम्परेचर, इफ दिस इज also more, then the transfer of heat will not take place. लू लगने का मतलब ही यही होता है कि बाहर की हीट अगर हमारी बॉडी के अंदर प्रवेश कर जाए तो लू लग जाती है. अगर हम अपनी बॉडी का टेम्परेचर बढ़ा सकें तो लू नहीं लगेगी. And this camel has got this property that it can raise its temperature up to 55 degrees centigrade. इसीलिए 55 डिग्री सेंटीग्रेड में ऊंट को बाहर रेगिस्तान के अंदर लू नहीं लगती है. सो इफ यू आर इंट्रोड्यूसिंग टॉपिक इन दिस वे, आई थिंक दिस इज कॉल्ड इंक्लूसिव लर्निंग, which will really explain so many things which are not given in the book, and this type of examples the students can remember for a long time. Even, say, as Mr. Prakash Choudhury said, he is maths teacher, I am also maths teacher. मैथ्स में एक इक्वेशन होती है, वेव इक्वेशन, y is equal to sin x. y is equal to sin x, ये लहर की इक्वेशन होती है. जब लहर की इक्वेशन पढ़ाते हुए अगर लहर ऐसी बनी हुई है, उसको अगर सिकोड़ दिया जाए, इस चीज को ये बड़े इंटरेस्टिंग वे में समझाया जा सकता है. और अगर आपको ये सब चीजें मेथड आती है या टीचर को ये मेथड आती है, वो सिर्फ y इज इक्वल टू साइन एक्स आपको नहीं पढ़ाएगा, इतनी सारी चीजें पढ़ा देगा कि अगर इसको यूं, अगर ये लहर यूं है, इसकी जगह खूब बड़ी बड़ी सुनामी लहर आ जाए तो क्या होगा? तो होगा ये कि अगर आवाज आ रही है ए, तो वो आवाज हो जाएगी ए, means amplitude will change if you will explain it like this. और या फिर अगर इतनी बड़ी लहर है, इसको सिकोड़ के यूं कर देंगे तो आवाज जो बन रही है ए, वो हो जाएगी ए, मतलब आवाज पतली हो जाएगी. और उसी को अगर आप बढ़ा के डबल कर देंगे तो वह आवाज ए की जगह हो जाएगी ए. If you are explaining it in this way, even when you are teaching, you should include so many topics in that. Even you can bring some of the captions of the films or magazines. In whatever thing these students are interested, you should include those things. Try to attach your subject with the environment. It will make the teaching very interesting, and it will, I think, it will be inclusive learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pandey, for sharing pedagogical interventions for inclusive classroom. Now may I invite Ms. Sarita Manuja, In-Country Advisor, Center for Assessment, Evaluation and Research, CBSE and Academic Advisor, Mosaic Network, India.
Evening. I'm really lucky to be here after 4 different perspectives on inclusive education. I think the whole session is turning out to be very interesting, and we're looking at inclusive education in different perspectives, and which definitely lends meaning to every word that is being said in this session, and very purpose of including this title or theme as a session for discussion. Please excuse me, I'm not very formal. I tend to get into conversation, and my presentation is also more for you to think, reflect as per your own context, your own school situation, and try and see what we can do. I would also like to bring through my slides or my thoughts the perspective of E to the entire issue of inclusive education, because I think digital world has brought us all together, and that e-health, e-education and e-testing, e-inclusive education. So let us try and see how technology can really get associated with our understanding of inclusive education. I'll try and limit myself to your theme that you have given to us, creating learning environment or creating inclusive education environment in classrooms. So how can we do it? First of all, this my title slide shows my understanding of inclusive education, and I say leave no child behind is perhaps the mandate that is passed on to us by NCF, the National Curriculum Framework 2000, which says that civil society should intervene to ensure that the inclusive education happens. And I also want to relate it to something that was said in the morning by Honorable Minister. I think he made a very, very important statement, and I thought it got linked to our session, this session of inclusive education. He said, Jansankhya hamare liye boj nahi hai. The population is not a burden to us if we can turn it into resource. But obviously, if we have exclusions from the population, they would not remain as much a resource as we think them to be. So it's in that context also, it's important that we have inclusive education really implemented well in our classrooms. I have some pictures, and as you look at those pictures, try and see very specifically how technology can help achieve that kind of situation. And these are the pictures which in some form or the other explain, depict inclusive education. I say inclusion is when students working on goals that are meaningful to their lives. And it's not a student, it is a group of students when they're working together, what we heard in the last session, on their goals, on their learning outcomes. So perhaps that's inclusion. And there is a feeling, and all of us have felt it and said it in many ways. My worthy speakers before me have also said it. We can all learn from each other. That's also inclusion, I thought. Some of the pictures are not from India. These are, so that means people think about inclusion everywhere in the world, something like this. People don't have to be the same to do things together. So if it is a child who has, if there's a child who is physically challenged, if there's a child who is mentally special, if there's a child, a girl or a boy, a girl from rural or the urban setting, economic backgrounds, whatever be the variations, but they don't have to be the same to do things together. They can still carry on doing things together, I thought. It is something to embrace the differences. Again, technology perhaps can help us understand how differences can be embraced. I think the first speaker in this session said that it's very challenging for the teacher to try and see how he or she has to cater to different sets of students in the classroom. But can technology help in some way so as to help the teacher to ensure inclusion in the classroom? Inclusion is also working together, and it's not only working together by the children, but also by the staff. So if they collaborate, if they do some sharing, I think whatever is happening in one school and has been successful, that may be tried by another teacher in another school. So it has so much to share and so much to collaborate on. They said we couldn't do this alone. Even the integration of schools with the higher education systems, what they want to expect at the point where we close. I think if there is an understanding between schools and higher education, then only inclusion can be achieved. If there's a communication of a student going up from school into a higher education course, and there's a communication, what this child has achieved during his 12 years, despite the challenge he or she had, I think those universities should acknowledge that. If they have just to follow those grade systems which are written, then there is definitely a problem. And of course, community, I think it has been said, must come together. Inclusion is also having friends amongst the student community, because no skill could make life of a child who is different, who is special, as rewarding as to have a good friend who was sharing, who was understanding, and helped him to develop the life skills. Inclusion is this, when they are happy together. And can we really achieve it? I thought there were just 4 principles of effective inclusion which can help us create effective learning environment whilst allowing inclusion. I thought if my teacher, if my management, if my policy maker understands diversity and values it and uses it appropriately, a child who is very good in science and another child who is very good in arts, I think Michael gave that example in the last session, if 2 can really come together and share their skills, it would be beneficial learning for both of them. We can achieve inclusion if we acknowledge diversity. We have to understand that every child is unique and he has unique needs. He is unique because of his multiple intelligence. He is unique because of his gender. He is unique because of his socio-economic background. They bring different experiences to the class. If that can be utilized to our advantage, we can definitely achieve effective inclusion. Reflective practices by the teachers, by the parents, by the policy makers can help us achieve that effective inclusion that we are looking at. And of course, we talked about it, the collaboration, which is the key. No teacher alone, no institution alone can achieve what they can achieve as a group. If CBSE has formed Sahodya's concept of Sahodyas, the very purpose at the basis of that is collaboration between schools. The clusters should come together and form those assessments together, do activities together. They should share best practices amongst each other. That is the key, and I think more globalized we are becoming, it is very important for us to understand that collaboration is the key. I thought for achieving all that, this 3-dimensional adaptation needs to be done. One in curriculum, of course, a child who is at this level of achievement in a particular subject, even if, for example, if you take a subject of evolution, evolution can be dealt at a developmental continuum where lowest level and the highest level has a gap. Some students would be at the lowest level, some at the middle, some at the top, and some beyond that also in the class. So curriculum needs to adapt to that. Our instructional behavior, the teacher's plan needs to be different. I know it is challenging. Teachers sitting here would say, where do we have time to do that? We have 40 students to deal with. But never mind, if you are teacher, then you are teacher. And if you are catering to those 40 students, let us remember that one child in the class, every one child in the class is precious to the family he comes from. So that is very important for us to give to that every child that we can give and that he can receive. It is very important. And of course, we need to adapt the ecological system, the ecosystem in the class. It is very important, the setting, where, when, and with whom that collaboration, that understanding, that delivery has to happen. All these are important things to ponder over when we are thinking of effective inclusion, I thought. So how? I have just 2-3 slides on this, and very quick, there will be some overlap also. But it's very important that 3 different agencies are operating here. One is the government system, that is the policy makers. I just clubbed them into government system. Then is the school level, the school managements, following those policies. And the classroom level, which is the level of the teachers. So let us see what we can do at those levels. I have some suggestions, but I'm sure you would have many more, and you must be practicing many more. How you can really take one of these from here back to your school and may use it to your advantage, or maybe add to my list through your questions later, or maybe at tea time if we get some time together. I would definitely want to hear from you to let my list grow up of the suggestions that I have tried to make. So for the government, I thought government should support parent involvement at all levels. So when they are thinking of curriculum, when they are thinking of assessment, there should be some policy where parents necessarily get involved with the school system during the delivery. It's dangerous, I know. As a principal, I would always fear that I don't know what the parent is going to bring to the school. When he or she comes, they mostly have complaints to make than to make any constructive suggestion. But nevertheless, they are very important vertex of the triangle. So we can't really ignore them, especially in context of inclusive education. Parents are very important. There should be some policy that government must state and pass on to the schools. Of course, I said partnerships with universities, environmental accommodation. There is a mandate with the schools that when you are building the school, when you are making the building of the school, ramps are a must. Now that is an environmental accommodation. Some of us think it's a costly affair, keep it for the second phase. But what will you do with those who are coming in the phase 1? Response and testing adaptations are very important. So there should be some leeway available with the school managements to assess and promote those students who do not achieve a particular level of achievement, but still they have progressed on the developmental continuum because they are special children. So there has to be some policy that schools can't do. It's the government which has to lay policy on that. And of course, there should be something about the staff development. Coming to the schools, the principals sitting here, I think they would be able to relate themselves very well to this, that a clear vision for the school for all students. There has to be a separate vision of every school towards inclusive education. If there's a mandate for them, a vision and a mission, I'm sure things will happen. There should be time given to the teachers, teachers and students, teachers of course here, for collaborative planning and problem solving. If teachers are given all the 7 periods out of 9 periods, they don't get time to collaborate, they don't get time to sit down and plan. So it has to be an essential part of the timetable management. There should be clear roles and responsibilities that principals must assign to all in the school so that every child is taken care of. There should be curriculum and instructional adaptation and modifications, environmental accommodations, because if there's a mandate from government but schools ignore it, then the things would come to the square one. It is important that it should be understood. And professional staff development focused on research-based activity. I think it was very ably said by one of the earlier speakers that classroom research is an essential component to make inclusive education possible. If teachers are not thinking, then they become machines, then they are doing the routine things mechanically. That will not account for inclusive education at all, I thought. And a welcoming environment for parent involvement. It is very important for principals, for school managements to welcome parents, community into the school. Let's not be scared. Let's not be threatened. If they have suggestions to make, let's build a spirit of tolerance between parents, teachers, and the school managements. Then only we will be able to see inclusive education happening. For the teachers, I thought collaboration with parents, teachers, and other specialists who come. Sometimes one has seen that if school has engaged a special teacher, there are opportunities when regular teacher and these special teachers don't see eye to eye with each other, and there are clashes. So the whole purpose gets defeated. So there has to be an environment where there is a coordination and understanding between all those who are contributing to inclusive education. Cooperative learning and peer support. It is very important for teachers to understand that frontal teaching days are gone. Inclusive education cannot be imparted in this kind of a mode when only I am talking and all of you have been listening for last, I think, 6-7 hours. It's not possible in the classroom scenario anyways. And not, nevertheless, it's not possible with the, when we are thinking of inclusive education. So we need to have differentiated instructions. Our teachers need to have differentiated instructions, specially designed instruction for multiple intelligences, friendship facilitation and positive behavioral support. I'm sure many schools are doing that. Now there was an example of having science night. Now science night will not only achieve the science subject development, it would definitely promote friendships. It would definitely give them time beyond the classroom scenario, an informal time to bond. And when there is bonding, there is inclusion. Multi-age grouping, obviously in inclusive education, there will be a student of 11 years who is special and a student of 8 years in the same class. So teacher really needs to handle, has to plan how to do the grouping and how to manage that and how to achieve the best result to disadvantage of none. Otherwise, majority of the students' parents would come complaining. Teacher pays attention to just these 2 children who are special, but whole of the class keeps waiting when she is attending to them. So there has to be a strategy in place how that inclusive education can be done to the advantage of everyone. Project-based learning, advanced planning and creative problem solving. It's part of CBSE now, problem solving. Use it for inclusive education. And again, welcoming environment for parent involvement. Now this is my last slide again. And I would want to say, sink or swim, you can make it. You can make it happen. If the child sinks, take the responsibility that there is onus on you as well, on us as well, the educationists as well. And if the child can swim and is happy, that quotient, happy quotient I read somewhere, if that can be achieved, now these are certain strategies that we can use. And certain accommodations and supports which are possible, I listed 3 of them. I thought assistive technology, I wrote on top of it. If it is there, use it. This is the world of technology. Let us use it to the advantage of inclusive education. But how? All of us will have to decipher. All these people who are making presentation, including Mosaic, I think they have solutions for inclusive education, because children can move at their own pace without disturbing the pace of the teacher, and not to the disadvantage of gifted children. A slow child can also be addressed. He can be allowed to move at his own pace. Personal assistance, instructional modifications. This is because I say inclusive education is best practices in education for all learners. But it is not a special education in a place. Inclusive education is not a place. Inclusive education can be achieved by supports and services brought to students through an individual education program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Sarita, Manuja. It was very, very informative and a very good presentation on inclusive education. Any questions to the speakers? Comments? Doubts? Suggestions? Okay, so it's the time to, yeah, sure.
The last speaker, ma'am. Actually, we do face such problems in the class. Children coming from different background, different needs. In my own class, I have such a student who has recently flown down from UK. So, they have different pattern of learning and we do have different. So we do formulate some of these things. We do practice some of these things which ma'am has told. And we are really looking forward to any more suggestions or guidelines from your side so that we can do best inclusive learning to our children. Sorry?
can you give me an example of certain one or two things that you do with that child?
Ma'am, one more, most importantly which I am doing, which we all have been discussing, is inclusive learning through buddy system.
Okay.
I have made buddy system in my class, and every week the partner is changed of that student, so that he makes friends with everyone and he learns language, he picks up language, other children picks up English from him at the same time.
Yeah.
And moreover, he should feel comfortable so that the environment is new to him. And then he is good at art and craft.
Yeah.
He is not very good in mathematics or writing, because they start writing in later age in UK. So when it comes to art and craft or the board work, soft board work or any decoration, I make him the in charge.
Yeah.
And everyone else has to follow his instructions. Yeah. When it comes to reading, writing or any other activity, the buddy system helps him. Yeah. So in this way, both are benefited out of this situation.
Right. Thank you very
much for your words.
Thank you very much. You have reinforced what I said, that friendships, if we are able to create, use it to the advantage of inclusive education in the schools, would be the best items for you. But I also want to use this opportunity to share my another thought as a teacher, as a principal. I have always practiced that any 1 month, any 1 week, any 1 day that can be discouraging or demotivating for a child would be his demotivation forever, you never know, for life. So if this child who has come with certain assets and he has certain setbacks, now if he's adopted fully by the school, by the teacher, by the class, by the friends in the class, I'm sure he'll be able to overcome it very fast, because they learn very fast. It's only that when we say, oh, you don't know this multiplication, even the younger children would be able to do it, you would have done the damage. So we're talking about not this exclusion, we are talking of the reverse that you are doing, that's the inclusion. Thank you.
Any other question or suggestion?
Now I request Dr. Veera Gupta, our session chair, to present a token of thanks to our eminent speakers. I request Dr. Veera Gupta to present a token of thanks to Ma'am Sarita Manuja. I invite Mr. Prakash Choudhury to receive a token of thanks.